Welcome to InvestorStockGuide's tutorial video of the weekly newsletter. This video will explain in detail the purpose of each section. The first icon is an iPad. This is a contest to win one of 5 iPad 3s. Click on the icon for more information. By clicking on the calculator, it will take you to the risk calculator tool I developed to help you determine how many shares you should buy based on your investment and risk tolerance. The free icon will direct you to the referral program page of the website, whereby you will receive a free extension to your membership if someone you recommend signs up as a new member. The video icon will take you to the tutorial page, where you can review videos at your convenience. This is the title of the newsletter, followed by the date. The weekly closing prices for the Canadian and U.S. markets are displayed here, with gains or losses for the week expressed in points and percentages. The current Canadian and U.S. stock market trends are expressed as bullish or bearish. In this case, the Canadian trend is bullish, while the U.S. trend is bearish. This next section shows the weekly closing numbers for certain commodities, with gains or losses expressed in dollar amounts and as a percentage. My commentary part of the newsletter briefly discusses the past week's news, major events, and facts regarding both the Canadian and U.S. stock markets. Here, I showcase famous stock market quotes from sophisticated, highly respected, and successful investors. These priceless quotes will make a difference on how you should perceive the stock market. This table displays a list of my top 10 stock picks, showing their gains and the time frame it took to achieve them. The list represents stocks which are either still being held or have been sold in the calendar year. Here, I showcase my top gainer for the corresponding year. This week's portfolio action section is divided into 4 columns: add-on buy, add-on short, sold, and covered. Symbols in the add-on buy and add-on short means you will add an additional buy or short to that particular stock. The sold column displays which stocks were sold, and the covered column displays which stocks were covered, which applies to stocks that were shorted. Shorting a stock means you sell it first and will profit from it by buying it back at a lower price. It is the opposite of buying a stock. This section is very important. It displays stocks which have a new stop-loss range. If you see your stock in this section, you need to take action and change your stop-loss order to reflect the new stop-loss price range. I will come back to this section later in the video. The Stocks Making a Move section displays stocks you should be considering to buy and or short on Monday morning. Each listing includes the date and stock symbol. Stocks with 4 symbols trade on the NASDAQ. Stocks with 3 symbols trade on the Amex, New York Stock Exchange, and the Dow. Stocks with a prefix of T trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and a prefix of V trade on the Venture Exchange in Canada. Next is Friday's closing price. The action column will either show a buy or a short. In this case, all 5 stocks are a buy. The stop-loss range displayed shows a price range to which you would set your stop-loss order immediately after purchasing the stock. A stop-loss is an order to sell your stock at a predetermined price. If the price gets to that level, it will automatically be sold. For REI, it's anywhere between $14.35 and $13.64. A tool I developed called the risk calculator will help you determine the amount of shares to buy. In the case of REI, you would buy 2,149 shares. On the home page of the website, under tutorial videos, is a separate video on how to use the risk calculator and how it will benefit you. The next column illustrates how much is being risked per share, followed by the total risk taken on this initial transaction. This section shows the amount of money invested so far. Here, I describe what the company does, what type of business it's in, and other important information. This week, there are 5 buy candidates to consider. It is totally up to you if you want to buy 1, 3, all 5, or none. Stocks in current portfolio show American and Canadian stocks, both buys and shorts. After a stock is in the Stocks Making a Move section, it will be added into this section in next week's newsletter. This section has 4 additional columns. The current value plus dividend column shows the current value of the stock, including the dividend. The gain or loss column shows the stock in a gain or loss position, while the percentage gain or loss column shows the gain or loss as a percentage. The dividend payout column will show the amount of the dividend and the record date for shareholders owning the stock. The current week SLR row, shown here, corresponds to the current week's stop-loss range. If you see your stock in the new stop-loss range section above, then you'll need to go to the current week's stop-loss range to determine your new stop-loss price and change your stop-loss order. The highlighted numbers represent the values for the current week. Whether you have a full-service broker or an online brokerage account, Investor Stock Guide recommends you get familiar on how stop-loss orders work and how they are entered, canceled, and re-entered. Other information shown is the amount of shares outstanding in the company market capitalization, which is calculated by the current stock price multiplied by the shares outstanding. Next is the earnings per share. This number may be positive or negative. Here, the dividend yield is shown, followed by the dividend interval in days, and lastly, the actual dividend payout. In this section, I give you week-by-week activity of the stock price and major announcements or news, if any. Once a stock has been sold or covered, it gets removed from the current portfolio section and added to this section. The following week, the stock will be removed and added to our yearly performance page. Investor Stock Guide strategy is based on 4 separate transactions. Depending on the amount of risk and or the volatility of the stock or the market, there may be times when only 2 or 3 separate transactions will be done. Shown here is T.RE, which was purchased on 3 separate occasions. July 14th at $1.52 for 7,894 shares, with a risk of $2,842 and an investment of $11,999. The second purchase occurred on August 11th at $1.65 for an additional 5,454 shares, with a further risk of $2,291 and a further investment of $8,999. The third and last purchase was on August 18th at $1.85 for 3,243 more shares, with a risk of $1,492 and a final investment of $6,000. The newsletter was willing to invest a total of $30,000, but since it made 3 purchases versus the 4, it invested only $26,998 in T.RE. With a risk of 30%, the newsletter's maximum allowable dollars it can risk would be $30,000 at 30%, which is $9,000. After the 3 transactions, the total risk was $6,624, well below the $9,000 risk allowed. The stop-loss price will determine the amount of risk for each separate transaction. As you keep raising your stop-loss price on the total amount of shares, your risk exposure decreases, and in this case, there is no more risk at all, since the stop-loss order is at $5.73. Total shares purchased is 16,591. The current value is $110,828. The current gain is $83,830, which is a gain of 311% in 39 weeks, as of April 20, 2014. In regards to how much money one invests and risk in each stock, it is different for every type of investor. For more details on this, please watch my risk calculator video. This concludes the Investor Stock Guide weekly newsletter tutorial video. Thank you.